Afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends. As it has already been said, my name is Tshilidzi Marwala, and I have the honor of serving as the Rector of United Nations University and the UN Under-Secretary General. I would like to express my sincere gratitude for the invitation to address you today at the Tech for Impact Summit. My academic and professional journey has always been deeply intertwined with my passion for AI. As a researcher, I have been fascinated by the theory and application since my doctoral qualifications in the 1990s. While we knew, even at that time, that AI held immense potential, we could not begin to imagine the extent of its future applications, nor the risks of its unchecked use. Now, as the UN official, I am particularly aware of the growing importance of global AI governance, which is what I would like to talk to you about today. Rapidly evolving technology holds immense potential to address the world's most pressing challenges, which are reflected in what is called the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Adopted by all UN member states in 2015, these goals represent a universal call to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure prosperity for all by the year 2030. Yet progress on achieving the SDGs has stalled, with only 18% of targets on track to be achieved by the year 2030. With its ability to catalyze progress across multiple sectors, the potential of AI to shift the trajectory of the SDGs is actually significant. In fact, research suggests that AI could support 79% of the SDGs targets, offering innovative solutions to the most complex challenges that humanity faces. Yet, as the late Stephen Hawking said, success in creating AI will be the biggest event in human history. Unfortunately, it might also be the last, unless we learn how to avoid the risks, especially the risks that are posed by this technology. So while AI can be a powerful tool for good, its irresponsible use carries the potential to undermine the progress of the SDGs. As AI capabilities grow, new safeguards and technologies will be necessary to address the concerns. Now, we can move on to the next slide. For instance, we need to govern this technology. And to govern this technology, we need to deal with some of the issues that are important. We need to govern it so that it can be used for good, but at the same time, minimizing its risks. And there are a number of issues that we need to take into account. Issues of AI transparency in decision-making is important. The challenges associated with bias, the limit exacerbating disparities in technology access, the mitigating the environmental costs, avoiding falling into the wrong hands. And I will also add the militarization of this technology. When I talk about this, I need to also take into account that these things that we want to see actually are not straightforward. Yeah, yes, AI must be transparent, but it must also be secure. And security comes at the expense of transparency. So these are very, very important. And there are a number of gaps that are available. I think the gaps in the representation of the data sets that are used in AI must be addressed. I think we need to also coordinate globally, nationally, and industries. And we need to avoid what we call arbitrage, regulatory arbitrage, where AI companies can move to places where governance is not as strict, very important. And then, of course, who is responsible for whatever it does is also an important issue that we need to look into. Now, what are some of the key elements of this AI governance? I think the issue of inclusive and diverse perspectives in the data set is important. Secondly, I think the issue of adaptability, that the guidelines that we need to adopt must be adaptive. And being adaptive basically means that we must adapt them as much as possible. And the other issue is issue of evidence-based foundation. And there must also be global coordination. It is clear that what algorithm to use in deploying AI should be done by industry, not by government. It also should be clear that the data set, the issue of transfer of data between countries, cross-border data flow, which is so essential in AI, must be done by an international organization. It is also clear that the rules around data centers located in a member state must be regulated by the member state. So there is a need to harmonize all this. Now, if we could just move on. So the United Nations University is taking the issue of international standards very, very seriously. And I'm going to talk about quite key documents that we have adopted. I think the Global Digital Compact to address the issues of access to AI, whether it is to the technology itself, whether it is to the devices that are needed for us to be able to exploit this technology, are quite important. And then, of course, we have just launched what the so-called International Panel on AI, which is going to generate a report that is going to take into account what are some of the risks emerging and how do we address them. And the United Nations now has an Office of Digital and Emerging Technologies, because it's not just AI. It's when AI is used with other existing and emerging technologies. And then, of course, there is the issue of the AI Resource Hub. I can just move to the next page. And here, at the United Nations University, which is based here in Japan, we have what is called the UNU Global AI Network. And we have more than 100 members in this network to deal with all the policies and the research issues around AI. And secondly, we have just developed a course with Microsoft and LinkedIn, Responsible AI in the Global Context, which is free, and it is available on LinkedIn platform in both Japanese and in English. And thirdly, we have just launched an AI institute in Bologna in Italy. If we could just move on. And then, of course, for us to be able to enact all these issues, we need to understand what exactly are we regulating when we say we are regulating AI. I think we are regulating 4 things. The first thing we are regulating is data. How to collect it, how to analyze it, how to store it, and how to use it. The second thing is to regulate the algorithms that are used. What algorithms do we choose and why? The third thing that we need to regulate is the computing, how we are computing, we are using computational infrastructure to be able to train these models and use these models. And of course, this goes into the issues of semiconductors and raw materials and how we extract them, the utilization of water in the semiconductor manufacturing and in the cooling of data centers, as well as the regulation of the energy that is used. And thirdly, how we apply this technology, because how you apply this technology depends on the industry you are in. 100%, 95% accuracy in a medical diagnostic tool is good, but it is not good in a medical application. And in order for us to be able to ultimately implement this, we need to understand the values. Transparency is one of the values. Security is another value. Secondly, we need to cultivate the behavior of people who are using, developing, and deploying AI. And thirdly, we need to establish incentive mechanisms so that good things can be incentivized and bad things can be disincentivized. And fourthly, we need to develop policies and regulations for this technology. And fifthly, we need to develop standards. Standards are very, very important for us to develop in this regard. And then we need to develop laws. And there are many good examples. If you go to the European Union, they have the AI law, the AI Act. It's a good example of what can be done. Another example is around data is the GDPR, also in the European Union. And across the board, you have some of these laws which are member states based and so on and so forth. And then the other thing that we need to also establish are the institutions that are going to regulate this technology. And these institutions cannot be one. I think they include governments and standardization bodies, international, national, as well as industry standards bodies. I think these institutions also include the institutions of learning, such as education, so that we are able to know the best practices around this technology. I think these institutions would naturally entail bodies such as the IEEE that understands the intricacies of the technologies themselves. And then, of course, also the industries themselves must also play a part. And of course, all this must be harmonized, because if they are not harmonized, you leave regulatory gaps that can actually be exploited. Our Secretary General, and I will quote him here because I can see I have 3 minutes left. He said, the trajectory of artificial intelligence will depend on our readiness to listen, to adapt, and to cooperate. I think these are very, very important. This is a very important message. And what we are doing today is part of listening. But we also need to encourage organizations that we represent to adapt. One form of adaptation is to increase the literacy around this technology. And then, of course, cooperation is actually quite important. And finally, next slide. Thank you very much. And I look forward to collaborating with you. Please stay connected. And if we have a course, a free online course with Microsoft and LinkedIn in both English and Japanese, and I look forward to your participation. You get a certificate at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.